Ever feel like you're living the picture-perfect life? The kind folks pin on their Pinterest boards, only to sense it's crumbling right under your feet? That's where I'm at, Emily Carter, 32, sitting in my quiet North Carolina home, trying to make sense of how my world turned upside down and why I'm still fighting to piece it back together. I've been married to Michael, my high school sweetheart, for 7 years. To anyone looking in, we're the couple you'd bet on. A charming house in a sleepy suburb, a goofy golden retriever named Buddy, and a routine filled with movie nights and Sunday barbecues. But lately, I've been wondering if perfect was just a lie I told myself to ignore the cracks sneaking into our story. We live in a neighborhood outside Raleigh, the kind of place where front yards are manicured, kids race scooters down the sidewalk, and neighbors swap small talk over sweet tea. Our house is modest but cozy, with a wraparound porch where we sip coffee on lazy mornings, and a backyard where Buddy tears after squirrels like it's his life's mission. I work as a dental assistant at a clinic in town, chatting with patients while I prep tools for cleanings. Michael's a software developer at a tech startup in the Research Triangle, always hunched over his laptop, lost in lines of code. He's driven, intense in this quiet way that's always drawn me to him. We met in 10th grade at a high school football game, cheering for our Panthers under the glow of stadium lights. He had this shy, crooked smile that made my stomach flip. By senior year, we were planning a life together, head over heels. Our days fell into a rhythm that felt like home, like the hum of a familiar country song. Mornings were a blur, Michael grabbing a biscuit and bolting out the door, me tossing Buddy his breakfast before heading to work. Evenings, though, were our time. We'd whip up dinner, maybe pulled pork or tacos, and crash on the couch with Buddy sprawled across us, binge-watching Parks and Rec or some sappy Hallmark flick. Weekends meant walks with Buddy through the neighborhood, past oak trees and cul-de-sacs, laughing about dumb stuff like whose turn it was to mow the lawn. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, and I thought it was all we needed. Then, about 6 months back, something changed. It was subtle, like the first chill of a Carolina fall you don't notice till it's biting. Michael started staying late at work, his phone lighting up with texts he'd check and then shove in his pocket. He began wearing cologne, some pricey kind he'd never bothered with before, and took longer getting ready, fussing with his hair in the mirror. When we'd head out, maybe to the grocery store or the local barbecue joint, his eyes would drift, not flirty, but like his mind was somewhere else. I'd catch him staring at his phone, his face blank, and when I asked, he'd mumble, "Just work," in a way that didn't add up. I tried to shake it off, told myself I was overthinking it. 7 years of marriage, a house, a dog. Those things mean you're solid, right? But doubt's like a mosquito bite you can't stop scratching. I'd lie awake at night, Buddy snoring beside me, wondering if Michael was slipping away, if our love was unraveling. I've always been the one to hold things together, the steady hand in our marriage. But now, I felt like I was gripping a dream that might not be real anymore. With a big charity event coming up at the local stadium, a fundraiser for kids with autism that I'd thrown my heart into, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shift, whether I was ready or not. Sometimes a single night can crack your world open, exposing truths you've been too scared to face. That's what happened at the charity event, a night meant to be about giving back but ended up tearing me apart. It was a Saturday, the air crisp with that North Carolina fall vibe, and the local stadium was buzzing with life. The fundraiser for kids with autism was in full swing. Booths selling homemade brownies, country music blaring from speakers, and kids darting around with face paint. I'd been volunteering for weeks, pouring my heart into making it special, but as I packed my bag that morning, my hands shook. Michael had promised to come, but his work stuff had been so unpredictable lately, and those late-night texts I pretended not to notice gnawed at me like a bad tooth. I got to the stadium with Jess, my best friend since college, who could always tell when I was off but didn't push too hard. "You good?" she asked, her eyes narrowing as we set up the face painting booth. "Just nerves," I lied, forcing a smile. The truth was, I felt like I was walking a tightrope, waiting for Michael to show up and prove I was wrong about him, about us. The event was a whirlwind. greeting families, painting butterflies and superheroes on kids' cheeks, laughing with volunteers. But my eyes kept flicking to the entrance, searching for Michael's familiar silhouette. Hours ticked by and my phone stayed silent. The knot in my stomach tightened. Then, there he was, weaving through the crowd, his smile bright but his eyes off, like he was playing a part. "Hey, sorry I'm late. Work was nuts," he said, his voice too smooth, too practiced. I nodded, swallowing the urge to call him out right there under the stadium lights. "You're here now," I said, my tone flat, and we moved through the event like strangers holding hands. His touch felt foreign, and every laugh we shared was hollow. I threw myself into volunteering, hoping the chaos would drown out the doubts screaming in my head. After my shift, I needed air, so I grabbed Buddy, who'd been lounging by the booth, and slipped away to the quieter edges of the stadium. The noise faded to a hum, the lights dim, and I let Buddy lead me to a secluded spot near the bleachers. I sat on the cold metal, my breath visible in the chilly air, and let my thoughts spiral. Was Michael cheating? Was I losing him? Buddy nudged my hand, his warmth grounding me, but it wasn't enough to quiet the ache. That's when Ryan Mitchell appeared, a volunteer I'd met earlier. He was easygoing, with a Carolina drawl and stories about coaching Little League that made me laugh for the first time all night. We talked, the conversation flowing like a lazy river. Nothing deep, just two people escaping the chaos. But then in a moment I still can't explain, the air shifted. Maybe it was the loneliness, maybe it was the hurt. But when Ryan leaned closer, I didn't pull away. Our lips met, a fleeting, desperate kiss that tasted of guilt before it even ended. Buddy bounded back, barking, snapping me out of it. My heart pounded, shame flooding me like a cold wave. "I'm sorry," I stammered, stepping back. Ryan's eyes searched mine, confused but kind. "I get it," he said softly, but I was already turning away, grabbing Buddy's leash. I fled the stadium, the lights and laughter mocking me as I fumbled for my car keys. Ryan called after me, offering to talk, but I couldn't face him, or myself. Driving home through Raleigh's quiet streets, Buddy's head out the window, I felt like I'd betrayed everything. Michael, our vows, the woman I thought I was. The kiss wasn't just a mistake. It was a crack in the foundation of my life. And I knew, sitting in our dark driveway, that nothing would ever be the same. Some secrets are like poison. You can try to bury them, but they seep into everything, tainting the air you breathe. That kiss with Ryan at the charity event was my poison, and it clung to me like damp Carolina humidity, impossible to shake. I drove home that night, Buddy's steady breathing in the passenger seat the only thing keeping me from unraveling. Our house was dark, Michael still at work, and the silence felt like judgment. I showered, scrubbing my skin raw, as if I could wash away the guilt. But every time Buddy looked at me with those trusting eyes, I saw the stadium, the bleachers, and the moment I stepped over a line I'd never imagined crossing. The next morning, I moved through our routine like a ghost. Michael was up early, sipping coffee at the kitchen counter, his laptop already open. "How was the event?" he asked, his voice warm but distracted. I forced a smile, muttering, "Tiring, but good," while my stomach churned. His eyes lingered on me, like he sensed something was off, but he didn't push. I wanted to confess right then, to spill everything and beg for forgiveness, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I poured cereal I didn't eat and went to work, where every patient's smile felt like a mirror reflecting my betrayal. Days blurred into a haze of pretense. I laughed at Michael's jokes, walked Buddy, and nodded through dinner conversations, but it was all an act. The guilt was a weight I carried everywhere, heavier each time Michael's phone buzzed with another work text or he stayed late again. I started noticing the distance between us wasn't just my doing. His absence, his guarded glances. They'd been there before the event, building a wall I'd been too scared to name. But my secret was bigger now, and it was eating me alive. I couldn't sleep, lying awake with Buddy curled up beside me, wondering if Michael could ever love me again if he knew. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, a week after the event, I asked Michael to sit down. The living room was dim, lit only by a lamp, and Buddy lay at our feet, oblivious to the storm brewing. "I need to tell you something," I started, my voice trembling. Michael's brow furrowed, his coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. I took a breath and let it out. The kiss with Ryan, how I'd been so lost, so lonely, that I let a stranger fill the void for one stupid moment. But then, my voice broke, and I confessed something worse, something I still can't believe I did. In a fleeting, unhinged moment at the stadium, driven by a madness I don't understand, I'd crossed a line with Buddy. A shameful, unthinkable act that shattered every vow I'd made to myself. Michael's face went pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. "With Buddy?" he whispered, his voice cracking. I sobbed, nodding, unable to meet his gaze. The room felt like it was collapsing, the air thick with betrayal. He stood pacing, then stopped, staring at me like I was a stranger. "Why, Emily? How could you?" I tried to explain. The loneliness, the fear of losing him, the desperation to feel anything. But it sounded hollow, even to me. Without another word, he grabbed his keys and left, the door slamming like a gunshot. I sat there, alone, Buddy's head in my lap, his warmth a cruel reminder of my shame. Hours stretched into eternity, and I wondered if he'd ever come back. When he did, just before dawn, his face was etched with pain. "I need space," he said, his voice flat. "I can't look at you right now." He packed a bag and moved to a friend's place, leaving me in a house that felt like a tomb. I started therapy alone, desperate to understand why I'd done something so unforgivable. But the truth was clear. I'd broken us, and the fracture ran deeper than I'd ever feared. They say rock bottom is where you find the strength to rebuild, but when your marriage is in pieces and your own heart feels like the enemy, climbing out feels impossible. Michael's absence left our North Carolina home hollow, the kind of quiet that screams louder than any fight. I'd confessed everything, the kiss with Ryan, the unthinkable act with Buddy, and watched the man I love walk away, his trust in me shattered. Days turned into weeks, and I was drowning in guilt, clinging to therapy like a lifeline and praying for a way to fix what I'd broken. But healing, I learned, isn't a straight path. It's a messy, painful crawl, and it started with facing the wreckage head-on. I found Dr. Laura Bennett, a therapist in Raleigh with a calm voice and eyes that didn't judge. In her office, surrounded by potted plants and soft music, I poured out my shame, trying to untangle why I'd betrayed Michael, myself, and even Buddy. Dr. Bennett listened, nodding, and suggested Michael join us. At first he refused, but after a month of living apart, he agreed, showing up with red-rimmed eyes and a guarded stance. Those early sessions were brutal. Michael's anger spilled out, raw and jagged. "Every time I think of Buddy, I see what you did," he said, his voice breaking. "How do I trust you again?" I had no answers, just tears and a desperate wish to rewind time. Dr. Bennett guided us through exercises to rebuild what was left. We started small, sharing fears and hopes in the safety of her office. Michael admitted he'd felt me slipping away long before the event, buried in his work to avoid the growing distance. "I didn't know how to reach you," he said, and that hit me hard. We'd both been lost, just in different ways. I shared my fear of losing him, my hope for a marriage where we'd talk, really talk, not just skate through life. Slowly, we learned to listen, to sit with the pain instead of running from it. Buddy became our unexpected bridge. Dr. Bennett suggested spending time with him to rediscover the joy he brought us. One Saturday, we took him to the park where we'd had our first date, the same one with oak trees and a creek that sparkled in the Carolina sun. Buddy chased a frisbee, his tail a blur, and for a moment we laughed, real, unguarded laughter. "He's still our guy, isn't he?" Michael said, watching Buddy with a mix of love and sorrow. "Yeah," I whispered, "and he loves us no matter what." We sat on a bench, talking about nothing, new food trucks downtown, the upcoming Tar Heels game, and it felt like a flicker of the old us. Fragile, but real. We built new habits, carving out time each night to talk, even when it was awkward. Some evenings, we'd sit on the porch, sweet tea in hand, and share small truths. Michael's stress at work, my guilt that still woke me at 3 a.m. One night, he reached for my hand, his touch tentative but warm. "I'm not over it," he said, his eyes steady, "but I want to try. I want us to work." Tears stung my eyes, and Buddy, sensing the shift, plopped his head across our laps, his snores filling the quiet. It was a moment of connection, a tiny step toward something new. The road wasn't smooth. Michael still struggled, some days pulling back, haunted by what I'd done. I wrestled with forgiving myself, knowing I'd hurt the two beings I loved most. But therapy gave us tools, ways to communicate, to rebuild trust brick by brick. We weren't the same couple we'd been. That version of us was gone. Yet in its place, something rawer, more honest was taking shape. Under the Carolina sky, with Buddy by our side, we were fighting for a future we could both believe in. One shaky, hopeful step at a time. You ever stand at a crossroads, knowing the path you choose will change everything, but still scared to take the first step? That's where I am now, months after the confession that nearly destroyed us, sitting on my porch in North Carolina, Buddy's head in my lap, wondering if Michael and I can rebuild what we lost. The charity event, that kiss with Ryan, and the unthinkable act with Buddy, they're scars I'll carry forever, but they've also forced me to face truths I'd ignored. About our marriage, about myself, about what it means to love someone through the worst of times. We're not whole yet, but under the Carolina stars, I'm starting to believe in a future worth fighting for, even if it's messy and uncertain. The months since Michael moved back home have been a slow dance of healing. Our sessions with Dr. Bennett are like peeling an onion. Each layer reveals new pain, but also new understanding. We've learned to talk, really talk, about the little things that built the wall between us. Michael's late nights at work, my silence when I felt ignored, the way we let love become routine instead of a choice. He's opened up about his hurt, how he sees Buddy and still flinches, but also how he misses the US we used to be. I've shared my guilt, the way it claws at me in quiet moments, but also my hope that we can be more than our mistakes. Dr. Bennett says forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to move forward, and we're both trying, one day at a time. Buddy's been our anchor, his unwavering love a reminder of what we're fighting for. We take him to the park most weekends, tossing a tennis ball under the same oaks where we fell in love. One afternoon, as Buddy splashed in the creek, Michael and I sat on a bench, the air warm with spring. We didn't talk about therapy or the past. Instead, we laughed about a new barbecue joint in Raleigh and planned a road trip to the Outer Banks. It felt normal, like slipping into an old pair of jeans, and when our hands brushed, neither of us pulled away. "I'm starting to see us again," Michael said, his voice soft, and my heart ached with cautious hope. But it's not all sunny days. Some nights Michael's quiet, his eyes distant, and I know he's wrestling with memories of what I did. I have my own battles, moments when I look in the mirror and don't recognize the woman who betrayed her vows. Therapy helps, but healing isn't linear. We've had arguments, sharp words about trust and time, and I've learned to sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. I'm not just fighting for Michael's forgiveness, I'm fighting to forgive myself, to believe I'm more than my worst moment. A few weeks ago, I ran into Michael by chance at the park, both of us there with Buddy on a whim. He was sitting by the creek, tossing pebbles, and when he saw me, he smiled, a small sad smile that held years of history. We walked together, Buddy trotting between us, and talked about the Tar Heels' latest game, a new coffee shop downtown, Life. It wasn't deep, but it was easy, like we were remembering how to be friends. As we parted, he said, "I'm not giving up, Em. Not yet." It wasn't a promise, but it was enough to keep me going. Sitting here now with Buddy snoring and the crickets singing, I know our story doesn't have a neat ending. Can we rebuild a marriage after so much pain? I don't know, but I'm learning that love isn't just the big moments. It's the choice to show up, to try, even when it hurts. Michael and I are walking this path together, shaky but determined, with Buddy as our constant. The future's uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hope, fragile as a Carolina dawn, lighting the